Okay, now we're going to look at denotation and connotation. Denotation is the dictionary meaning of a word. Connotation, on the other hand, is the added meaning or suggested meaning of a word. Let's look at an example. The word home. The dictionary meaning of the word home is the place where one lives permanently, especially as a member of a family or household. However, if we think of the word home and what some of the other meanings that word might bring to mind, we might think of things like warmth, love, comfort, and belonging. And for me, it brings to mind happiness. These words would be the connotative meanings of the word home as opposed to the dictionary meaning. Okay, when we explore the denotation and connotation of a poem, we are looking at the poet's diction. Diction is the choice of words by an author or poet. It's what words the author chose to convey meaning or paint a picture in the reader's mind. Many times, a poet's diction or choice of words can help unlock the tone or mood of a poem. Although many times we use the words mood and tone like they are the same thing, they do not necessarily mean the same thing. Mood is the feeling or atmosphere that a poet creates. Mood can suggest an emotion, such as excited, or the quality of a setting, such as calm or somber. In a poem, mood can be established through word choice, line length, rhythm, etc. Tone is a reflection of the poet's attitude towards the subject of a poem. Tone can be serious, sarcastic, humorous. Let's look at an example on the next slide. Okay, please follow along as I read this poem to you. I want you to think about mood and tone and how the author's word choice helps to convey the mood and tone of this poem. Deadly winter. Barren branches pierce the sky, chattering in the shivering breeze. The clouds hold captive rays of the gloomy sunshine. Blades of grass brown and tattered from frost's sharp fingernails. Winter squeezes the last breath out of all that once thrived. Okay, so if we think about the poem's mood, we might describe it as gloomy because it's about death. How do we know it's about death? Well, for one, we look at the title and see that deadly is in the title, Deadly Winter, right? So we think of death, we think of gloom and maybe dreary, right? The tone, on the other hand, might be described as serious. The words used in the poem give clues as to how the author feels about winter. He uses words like barren, chattering, shivering, gloomy, tattered, sharp fingernails, squeezes the last breath. All of these words show that the author does not look at winter in a good way. Wouldn't you agree? I'm going to ask you to think about other words that we could use to describe the mood and tone of this poem here shortly. Okay, now we're going to look at some of the types of poem. Form. A poem may or may not have a specific number of lines or rhyme scheme, but it can still be labeled according to its form or style. Here are the three most common types of poems according to form. First, we have lyric poetry. Lyric poetry is any poem with one speaker, not necessarily the poet, who expresses strong thoughts and feelings. Most poems, especially modern ones, are lyric poems. Think of the lettuce poem that we saw a few slides ago. The second one is a narrative poem. It is a poem that tells a story. Its structure resembles the plot line of a story. For instance, it has an introduction of conflict and characters, rising action, climax, and the denouement or descending action. A good example of a narrative poem would be the one about the little girl who cheated, right? Who won the art contest by cheating. That poem tells a story. The third one is a descriptive poem. This is a poem that describes a world that surrounds the speaker. It uses elaborate imagery and adjectives. While emotional, it is more outward focused than lyric poetry, which is more personal and introspective. A descriptive poem would be, or a good example of a descriptive poem would be the one we looked at on the last slide. It's describing death, right, in a winter scene. Okay, I'm going to ask you to think about the three types of poems that I just read to you, and I want you to decide which one you might be most interested in writing if I were to ask you to write a poem. Okay, here we're going to stop and we're going to get back with our partners again for the last set of questions, referring to the previous slides. If you have any questions, please ask, and remember the document will be in your Google Classroom.